Ever get that feeling? Like when you're standing somewhere and you just know there's a whole other world happening underneath.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're talking about today. We're going deep underground to explore a hidden biosphere. It's so massive, it makes all the urchins combined look tiny.
It's true. It's like a whole other planet down there.
Yeah.
And it's packed with life. Well, not the kind of life we're used to seeing.
Right. Probably not lush forests and furry creatures.
Not quite. Think more along the lines of octillions of microscopic organisms, bacteria, archaea, that sort of thing.
Okay, so we're talking extreme life forms then. What's it like down there?
Extreme is putting it mildly. Imagine crushing pressure, heat that could melt metal, and almost no oxygen. It's a wild place, shaped by what we call rock weather.
Rock weather. That's a new one. It's the slow, powerful movement of tectonic plates grinding against each other. It's what creates this incredible underground landscape. And the amazing part, this whole system has been evolving for maybe billions of years.
Billions of years. That's almost impossible to wrap your head around. But where does this hidden biosphere actually begin? Does it start at the Earth's core?
You might be surprised to hear this, but it actually starts way closer than you think. It starts in the soil, the stuff in your garden.
Really? So how do we get from my backyard to this extreme alien world?
As you go deeper and deeper, the oxygen starts to thin out and the pressure builds up. First you've got the soil, then groundwater. Keep going and you'll hit bedrock.
Bedrock, that's pretty deep down, right?
It is. And within that solid rock is where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's in the bedrock?
Imagine a network of microscopic caves and fissures, all interconnected. That's the heart of the deep biosphere.
So we're talking about a maze inside solid rock.
Yeah.
Wow. How deep are we talking exactly? Give me some perspective.
Okay, imagine being 400 meters down. That's deeper than the Eiffel Tower is tall. The pressure down there is like being on the surface of Venus.
That's intense.
And that's just the beginning. Go down to 1,000 meters deeper than the Burj Khalifa, and you're talking barely any oxygen at all.
I'm starting to feel a little claustrophobic, and we haven't even talked about what lives down there.
It gets more intense. Go down nearly 4 kilometers, and the pressure is like the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Plus, the temperature, hot enough to boil an egg in seconds.
Okay, now you're just messing with me. What on earth could possibly survive in conditions like that?
Well, we call them extremophiles, and let me tell you, these things are the ultimate survivors.
Extremophiles, huh? So not your average goldfish, then. What kind of creatures are we talking about here?
We're talking about some seriously tough customers. Let me introduce you to one, just to give you an idea. Have you ever heard of Desulfirudis odaxviator?
What? Okay, that's a mouthful. I'm going to need you to break that down for me.
Fair enough. But believe me, the name is about as complex as it gets. This little guy is all about simplicity. You see, Desulfirudis odaxviator is the ultimate minimalist. It's figured out how to live entirely on its own, even down there.
So it's like a deep earth hermit. What does it even live on down there? Rocks.
You're not far off.
Huh.
This bacterium has evolved a way to create its own food. It takes carbon and sulfur from the surrounding rocks and converts them into usable energy.
No way. So it's like a microscopic farmer, but instead of soil, it's cultivating rocks.
That's a great way to put it. It's amazing what life can do when it has to, isn't it?
Absolutely incredible. But even farmers need a break sometimes. What happens when things get really rough, even for a hardcore survivor like Desulfirudis?
Well, when the going gets tough, this little bacterium has a pretty incredible survival strategy.
Let me guess. It's got some kind of rock-powered force field.
Even better. It basically hits the pause button on life and goes into hibernation.
Hold on, hibernation. Like a bear in winter.
You got it. But we're not talking about a few months here. We're talking millennia. Thousands of years, potentially.
Millennia. Seriously, how is that even possible?
It forms something called an endospore. Think of it like a tiny armored bunker. A seed that can survive just about anything until the time is right to sprout again. That's what an endospore is for this bacterium.
Talk about playing the long game. This is blowing my mind. Okay, so that's one extreme survivor. Who else is down there?
How about we move on to another resident with a tongue twister of a name? Ltrchium hemiconnexum.
Hit me with it. I'm starting to think these names are getting easier.
This one is an archaea, not a bacterium, but just as amazing when it comes to adaptation.
Archaea. Okay, refresh my memory. What's the difference again?
They're both single-celled organisms, but archaea are actually more closely related to us, eukaryotes, than they are to bacteria. They often thrive in these extreme environments.
Got it, Archaea. So how does Ltrchium, whatever it's called, survive down there?
Imagine a single-celled organism, right? Now give it its own built-in spacesuit. Ltrchium hemiconnexum has this incredible double membrane that acts as a shield, protects it from all the harsh chemicals and heat.
So it's like a tiny microscopic astronaut. I love it.
And to navigate this pitch-black world, they've even got grappling hooks. Well, kind of. They have these super tiny filaments called hemi that they use to anchor themselves to surfaces.
It's wild to think about these tiny organisms just chilling, living their lives in a place we didn't even know existed until pretty recently.
Yeah.
But we're talking about a whole biosphere here, right? So it's more than just a few tough individuals.
You're absolutely right. It's not just a random collection of extremophiles all doing their own thing. Down in the deep biosphere, teamwork is key.
Teamwork. You mean they've got their own little underground communities?
Precisely. That's where biofilms come in. Think of a biofilm like a team of specialists, each with their own unique skill set. They work together to break down substances that would be toxic to you or me.
Like a microscopic cleanup crew.
Exactly. Some might focus on methane, while others break down sulfates. It's all about collaboration and sharing resources in this environment.
Teamwork makes the dream work, even in the deep biosphere. But earlier you mentioned that some of these organisms have insanely slow metabolisms. Just how slow are we talking here?
We're talking millions of times slower than what you'd find on the surface. Think about it. Resources are scarce, energy is precious. They've adapted to conserve wherever they can.
Millions of times slower. So they're basically living in slow motion.
In a way, yes. They might have bursts of activity now and then when nutrients become available, but for the most part, they exist in this state of near-suspended animation.
So could these guys live for millions of years?
Some scientists believe that's a real possibility.
Wow, millions of years. Now that's an energy-saving strategy I can get behind. But hold on. Are you telling me that something's eating these practically immortal microbes?
It wouldn't be a proper ecosystem without a food chain, would it?
Guess not. But it's still creepy. So what's lurking down there in the depths?
Well, remember those larger spaces we talked about? The mini caverns and cracks within the rock created by rock weather?
Yeah, those places don't sound so bad now.
Well, in those spaces where there's a bit more room to move, you find bigger organisms. Multicellular predators, like worms that dwarf the microbes.
Worms. As if being buried alive wasn't bad enough. Now we've got giant worms.
These aren't your average garden variety earthworms. Some of these creatures are 100 times larger than the microbes they hunt, with adaptations that allow them to thrive in the pitch-black, nutrient-poor environment.
Okay, you've officially freaked me out. Giant worms hunting down immortal microbes. This deep biosphere is a wild place. But how do we even know all of this? So we can't just send a camera down there or a grad student in a really tough suit.
Not quite. Accessing this world, it's a huge challenge. We're talking about drilling kilometers into the Earth's crust.
Then I'm guessing it has to be a super clean drill, too. We wouldn't want to contaminate this pristine environment, right?
Exactly. Preventing contamination from surface microbes, that's a constant concern. And then even if you get a sample, you have to figure out how to recreate those insane conditions in a lab. The pressure, the heat, that unique chemical cocktail, it's tough.
Yeah, no kidding. So if we can't easily go down there ourselves, and it's this hard to study the organisms in a lab setting, how are we learning so much about this deep biosphere?
Well, a lot of what we know comes from analyzing genetic material. You take a core sample, like from a deep mine, and you look at the DNA and RNA.
So we're basically playing detective, using these tiny genetic clues to figure out who's living down there.
That's amazing. But it sounds like we're still in the early stages of exploring this hidden world, right? Absolutely. We've only just scratched the surface, so to speak. There's still so much we don't know. How much biodiversity is really down there? How are those ecosystems evolving over time? These are questions we're just beginning to explore.
It's humbling and a little exciting to think about all those mysteries waiting to be uncovered right beneath our feet. But this whole deep dive has got me thinking, if life can thrive in these insane conditions, what does that tell us about the possibility of life elsewhere in the universe?
That's a question that keeps a lot of scientists up at night, and the answer is it opens up a universe of possibilities. We used to think life was this fragile thing that needed very specific conditions to survive, but the deep biosphere flips that idea on its head.
So we might need to rethink our whole approach to searching for alien life.
Exactly. Think about a place like Europa, that moon with the subsurface ocean. If life exists there, it might be facing similar challenges to our deep Earth extremophiles. Extreme pressure, limited energy, no sunlight.
It's mind-blowing to think that studying these underground ecosystems could help us find alien life.
And it goes even deeper than that. The deep biosphere might hold clues to the origins of life right here on Earth.
You mean life might have started deep underground, not in some warm, shallow sea?
It's a possibility. Remember how stable the deep biosphere is? Maybe that was the perfect environment for life to emerge, safe from all the chaos happening on the early Earth's surface.
Wow, this deep dive has taken us on quite the journey. From giant worms to the search for alien life, who knew there was so much going on beneath our feet?
It just goes to show there's still a lot of mystery in the world, and a lot left to discover.
That's for sure. So next time you're walking around, spare a thought for that hidden world teeming below. It's a good reminder that there's always something new to learn, even in the most unexpected places. Until next time, keep exploring.